Okay, so we're going to talk about simplifying radicals. And so what we're going to do and what we did in class today is we discussed what you would do for something like the square root of 20. So some people say, well, I'll just put it in my calculator and I would get some number out, 4 point something, 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 and write that down. But actually the most simple form to write the square root of 20 is to write it as a simplified radical. Okay, so that's what we're going to be doing today. Right, so there's two ways to think about this. You can decide what makes more sense to you. The first way that you can think about it is you can do a factor tree. So you can break this down into its prime numbers. So 2 times 10 gives me 20. 2 times 5 gives me 20. And then now I've got it all broken down into its prime numbers. And then since we're doing the square root, for each pair, 2 times 2, the square root of 2 times 2, the square root of 4, is 2. So 1 will come outside of the radical. So 2 will come outside, right? It's like we just took the square root of 4. And then what's left underneath the radical of 5? So 2 root 5 is the simplified version of that. Another way to think about this is you can, instead of writing root 20, you can think of two numbers that multiply to 20. And those numbers, you typically want to try to look at square numbers. So 4, 9, remember, are square numbers. So if you can find anything that's divisible evenly, if 20 divides evenly by 4 or 9 or 16 or 25, then you can also simplify the radical. So in this case, of course, 20 is divisible by 4. So we can write this actually as the square root of 4 times the square root of 5. And if you're not sure if that works or not, you can punch it in your calculator and you can see it's the same thing. Square root of 4 is the same thing as the square root of 5. Just like 4 times 5 is 20. They're the same. But we know the square root of 4. We know that the square root of 4 is 2. So 2 root 5 is this simplified radical. And that's how you would write the answer in the most simple version. And this is actually much more accurate than just writing a decimal and rounding it off. Okay, let's look at another one. So root 18. So if I think about two numbers that could be written as 18, if I think about the square numbers, these can be, I know 18 is divisible by 9. So if I rewrite this as 9, square root of 9 times the square root of 2, well, we know the square root of 9 is just 3. So this simplified radical is 3 root 2. And then I'll do the last one the other way. So if I'm going to look at 108, I'll just go ahead and do a factor tree this time because maybe I'm not really sure if they're divisible by 4 or 9 or 16. So I'm just going to split it up. So 2 times 54, 9 times 6. This is 3 times 3. And this is 2 times 3 into its prime numbers. And then for each pair, 1 will go on the outside of the radical. So for each pair, I can pull 3 out of this, right? Because 3 times 3 under the radical is 9. But if I take the square root of it, it's 3. So 1 comes out. And then I've got a pair of 2's. So also a 2 will come out in the front. And what am I left with underneath? A 3. And then the last thing that you're going to want to do is if you have 2 times 3, so that's just 6. Yeah. 6 root 3. So that's the simplified version of this radical.